Chapter 17. Take a minute and look at the photo that Reina Grande has included here. It is a picture at Mego's graduation, and you can see from left to right that there's Betty, little sister Betty, her mom, Mommy, and Mego, Tia Guerrero, and Lupita. Mego and I stood by the tracks watching the train rumble past us. Mego said that train could take us to otro lado. Really? I asked, taking her hand as we started walking toward downtown. Carlos walked on the tracks, bending down once in a while to pick up bits of gravel. You should see, Nina, Mego said, how many people at the train station are heading to el otro lado. I've asked them about the journey, and it doesn't seem so bad. They ride the train to Mexico City, transfer to another train, and ride it all the way to the border. We could save up some money, buy the train tickets, and go. But how could we find Papi? Carlos asked, joining us. We'll ask around when we get there, Mego said. My teacher says Los Angeles is very big, Carlos said, shooting a rock at a bird with a slingshot. He missed. But what about Mommy? I said. Would we leave her here? Why not? Mego said. She left us again, hasn't she? She won't care whether we leave or not. Yeah, but, I said, ready to defend Mommy. I was still thinking about that drawing she had torn into shreds. But what? Mego said. I don't know. I just wish things were different, I said. We walked the rest of the way downtown in silence, on our way to Mommy's work. Not long after the government had finally given away the land Mommy so desperately wanted, she decided it would be best if she went to live with Tia Guerrero. Back then, my aunt had lived downtown a few blocks away from my mother's work. Mommy started staying over at her apartment a day or two during the week. Then it became 3 days, then 4, until finally she packed up her clothes and said she was moving in with my aunt. Since she would get out so late from work, the public minibuses weren't running by then, and Mommy had to take a cab home. The cab fare is 7 times the bus fare. That's money we can use to buy food, she would say. Also, I'm frightened of walking home at night on these dark streets. What if something happened to me? I can walk you home, Carlos said, holding tightly to his slingshot. Mijo, you're only 10 years old. I don't think a robber would be frightened of you and your slingshot, Mommy said. We begged her to stay with us. We promised we'd be good, but Mommy shook her head and said it was for the best. By then, my memory of Papi had become a wisp of smoke. Sometimes I would forget that I had a father, and whenever I remembered him, the memory of him did not hurt. It did not take the breath out of my body or sting me and fill me with pain like the venom of a scorpion. But the thought of my mother living apart from me made my body tremble, my teeth clench in my mouth, my eyes burn as they did whenever we had no money to buy gas and I would have to fan the hot coals in the brazier as our meal slowly cooked. If she hadn't returned from el otro lado, Mago said I would have already forgotten her, the way I'd forgotten Papi. Little children are blessed with short memories. But my mother's constant comings and goings wouldn't let me forget her. Instead, they increased my longing for her even more. She visited us on Sundays, and every time she left us, Carlos, Mego, and I would keep ourselves from running after her. Betty chased after her like a little duckling. We were left behind to comfort our little sister, to hold her while her tears subsided, to make funny faces and stick out our tongues, do cartwheels and handstands, sneak into the neighbor's yard and steal juicy guavas and mangoes to sweeten the bitter memory of the one who came and went. Since my grandmother didn't have a refrigerator, we had to go to El Mercado every day to buy the ingredients for that day's meals. But first we had to stop at Mommy's work so she could give us some money. Whenever we walked there, we would be out of breath and our feet would be hurting. It would take us 45 minutes to get there and another 45 to get back. Mego would get there by herself on the combi, but she didn't like going alone and we couldn't afford the bus fare for us all, so we walked. Mego thought I should stay home, that it was too far for me to walk. But I wanted to see Mommy more often than 4 days a month, so I would come. And I wouldn't complain about my feet hurting because if I did, Mega would stop bringing me. She had been less patient with me, with us all. Usually Mego would go in there and wouldn't even talk to Mommy. She would just hold out her hand for the money and then quickly leave the record shop, and all I could do was turn around and wave a quick goodbye to my mother. But one day, when she went inside, Mommy wasn't alone. Her boss, Don Oscar, was there, and his son was there too. I knew he was his son because he looked just like Don Oscar, and Mommy was always talking about Don Oscar and his family, about the 3 record shops they owned and the money they had. I saw Mego wiping the dust off her face with her hand, but she couldn't do anything about the dust that covered her feet. "Hola, niños! How are you?" Don Oscar said. We said good afternoon to him and his son, who was about Mego's age. "Mego, your mother tells me you've done very well in school. I'm proud of you." "Thank you, Senor," Mego said. "Mego, I asked Don Oscar to be your godfather for your graduation, and he's accepted. Isn't that great news?" Mommy said. She came and put an arm around Mego's shoulder. My sister tried to squirm away from Mommy, because even though it was the most amazing news we've heard in a long time, Mego was still too angry at Mommy for leaving us again. "Thank you, Senor," Mego said. "We'll have the graduation party at my sister's house," Mommy said. "It would be an honor if you and your family joined us, Don Oscar." Of course, he said. Mommy gave us money for our shopping, and she even gave us a few extra pesos so that we could buy ourselves a treat. Then we said our goodbyes. We walked out the door, and Mego stopped and turned to look at Oscar Jr. one more time. He smiled at her, and she blushed all the way to El Mercado. "I think he likes you," Carlo said. She blushed even more. "I don't think he would like someone like me," she said. "Why not? There's nothing wrong with you," I said. "Of course there is. I'm poor." I thought about the movie we saw with Mommy of Paquito and his rich father. There was nothing wrong with Paquito except that he was poor. I told Mego I knew what she meant, but still, I thought about all the soap operas Tia Emperatriz liked to watch, the ones where tragically beautiful girls are saved from their miserable poverty by handsome, rich men who fall desperately in love with them. "Oscar can be your hero," I insisted. "He can save you." Mego looked at me and said, "Papi will be my hero. He will save me. Save us all." Don Oscar, his wife, and their 3 children attended Mego's 6th grade graduation. They brought her 3 huge bouquets of flowers. She was the envy of the class because nobody else had gotten wealthy people for godparents. Everyone else's flower bouquets couldn't compare to the ones Mego got. Mego wore her white flag-bearer uniform, which is the nicest outfit she owned. We all stood up and clapped for my sister when her name was called. And the party was held at Tia Guerra's apartment building because it had a nice courtyard. To our surprise, Mommy went out of her way to be nice to Mego. She even gave her a set of gold earrings that dangled from her ears. They looked too grown up on my 12-and-a-half-year-old sister. But that was why Mego loved them, that and because they were a gift from Mommy. That day was the first time in a long time that Mego didn't have to be anyone's mother. She didn't have to clean or take care of anything or anyone. For the first time, Mego could be a girl. Mommy, Abuelita Chinta, and Tia Guerra took care of the guests. They served the food and drinks. While the adults talked, we were free to run around the courtyard. We were very shy around Don Oscar's kids, even though they were our age. They belonged to a different class than us. They had beautiful clothes, they went to private schools, they spoke formal Spanish, and once in a while they giggled at the way we talked. Mego never stopped blushing when Oscar Jr. looked her way. I didn't know that 13 years later I would return to Iguala during my junior year of college, and I would be invited by Don Oscar to celebrate Christmas with his family. I would find myself wearing clothes as nice as theirs. I would find myself not gawking at their 2-story brick house because by then I would have set foot in similar houses in the United States. I would find myself sitting in their living room and having Oscar Jr. and his sisters shove lyrics of their favorite American songs at me so I could translate for them. I would find myself telling them about my college courses after Oscar Jr. had told me about his last year at UNAM, Mexico's biggest public university. I would return to the U.S. more determined than ever because even though I had drunk Bailey's with them, dined and sang English songs with them. My cousin Lupita, Tia Guerra's daughter, was working for them as a maid, and I knew then, as I know now, that could also have been my fate.